Good morning. The question of why I believe in God and I believe in Christ sometimes comes up. I'll talk about that in just a second. When we talk about belief in something, it's a complicated question. It's very difficult to do that in a 4 or 5 minute video, but I'm going to try very quickly to kind of give you a few of the reasons that I believe that God is God and that Jesus is his son. But I'm ultimately trying to get you to understand where I land on this question. There is something called beyond a reasonable doubt that we use in our own court of law. In our own court of law, it tells us that it is quite possible that there is a very unlikely situation where someone might not be guilty. And we try very hard to fall on the side of not guilty, even if there is the possibility of no guilt. But it's something called beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, there might be unreasonable doubts. When we put somebody in a prison for life or they go on death row, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, an unreasonable doubt might be, well, someone was in disguise and they have virtually the same DNA, things like that. Unreasonable evidence. And the thing is that if we're going to be fair about how we examine things, I think it's important for us to be fair all the way around. And I think it should be that way when we examine belief systems as well. And so my basis for belief is not only based on what I feel and the personal experiences that I have had, which I'll say more about that in a second, but there is a certain reasonable pieces of evidence that could lend us to believe in God. For example, why is there something rather than nothing? Why? The odds of what has happened here are so astronomical and so unlikely, especially if you look at it from a completely and totally evolutionary stance, that they have now had to come up with something called the multiverse. And in a multiverse, endless possibilities exist. And so ultimately, one of those possibilities would result in us. That sort of, I want to call it pseudoscience. There may be something like that out there, but I don't think it applies to creation. We also have the absolute fact of irreducible complexity. Something either has to work or it doesn't work. Our eye either sees or it doesn't see. Reproduction either functions properly in a species or they go extinct. Certain things have to work from the beginning, or they simply cannot evolve to work later. That's a good evidence as well. Not to mention the fact that we have all sorts of archaeological evidence that supports the Bible. The Bible is also one of the most documented and has the most examples of antiquity of any other document. I just want the Bible to be treated with the same sort of intellectual honesty that all other works of ancient writing are treated with. And if you truly get into and examine the Bible, you will realize that we have so much information about it. When we talk about, does God exist? I really like Ray Comfort's view on this one that he puts out, where he says, if you see a painter, you don't just go, wow, isn't that remarkable that all these paints just fell on the canvas in random spots and made this beautiful piece of art. Or if you find a building, there's a builder. If you find a watch in the forest, you don't assume that it grew out of rocks and moss and trees and bushes and stuff. You know that someone made it. And to me, that's a pretty good argument that there is indeed a creator. But we have to push that argument further into who is Jesus. That's something that we can talk about at length in future videos possibly, but the truth of the matter is that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he came and he fulfilled prophecies. Hundreds of prophecies about himself that there's no way that he could have done beforehand or planned. You can't plan where you're born. You can't plan so many things into the situation. You can't plan your ancestry and your lineage. And that's why we have all of that in the Bible, to direct us toward Christ. There's not a credible scholar anywhere, really, that's serious, that tries to tell us that Jesus didn't exist. Now, there's a lot that question whether he was the Son of God or not, but almost everyone universally agrees that Jesus was a real person, that he was here, and that his influence has come down through the ages to us today. But really, when it comes down to it, folks, there's books and books and books about all sorts of evidences out there, and every time I research it, I find more and more. But the reality is this. At the end of the day, I have to look at all of that and beyond a reasonable doubt and make a conclusion. Do I trust God with faith? Do I believe on his Son for my salvation, or do I not? That's really what it comes down to. And it is a personal relationship. I sincerely suggest, if you have any doubts, or if you are concerned about whether this is real, ask God to reveal himself to you. Seek, and you'll find. Knock, and the door will be opened. Have a great day. Be kind to each other. See you next time.